So we are now in a temple, a shrine to the great Bob Ross. And, you know, I'm very happy to chat a little bit with Faraway and with Lightspeed about virtual beings and virtual societies, actually in a virtual society as virtual beings. And, you know, in a shrine to one of the great creative geniuses, Bob Ross. And yeah, why don't we step outside where it's a little bit cooler and quieter, and we can chat a little bit about the future. So maybe you guys could introduce yourselves and your kind of interests in virtual societies and virtual worlds, and then we'll get the conversation going. Do you want to go first, Amy?
Sounds good. Thanks for having us here. So I'm Amy Wu. I'm an investment partner at Lightspeed, and I invest in all things crypto and gaming. It's been definitely interesting seeing kind of the intersection of that. On the gaming side, you know, we're investors in games like Epic Games, Splitgate, and, you know, and also with Alex Paley here with Faraway Games. And
Hello,
yeah. And yeah, we've invested in a number of companies in crypto, and definitely what it means to be, you know, virtual beings in metaverse kind of societies is something that we've thought about a lot, both in like what has existed, I think, in the world today, and where are we going from here.
But one of the things that it means is that we are always open to new experiences, like Tomod's incredible dance. So Alex, do you want to talk a little bit about Faraway?
Yeah. So I'm Alex Paley. I think we're going to do a handshake. I'm the co-founder of Faraway. My history has always been in gaming. I started making games since I was in high school. I was the head of studio at Blue Mobile, and most recently the product at Scopely before Faraway with my co-founder. I've literally worked with my co-founder for over the past 10 years. We were focused on the intersection of blockchain and gaming. So we're going after, you know, we think there's a big shift to more, you know, open and decentralized economies, true ownership of in-game assets, and then the ability to, you know, to trade those assets that you actually own on more liquid exchanges or more liquid marketplaces. So we obviously, you know, thought a lot about, you know, virtual persistent spaces, metaverses, et cetera. And I think we're getting there, right? It's like people are spending more and more time in the virtual world. They're socializing with their friends in the virtual world. And then, you know, most recently, obviously, with games like X and Infinity, people are earning a living in the virtual world. So I think we're just getting started. And I think, you know, the space is going to evolve rapidly over the next 5 years.
Well, speaking of exploring virtual worlds, let's head over to this cabin a little bit. I guess just looking at Rec Room and Roblox and the creator economies in those video games, do you see a big clash between these centralized companies that are running metaverses versus metaverse worlds versus Sandbox and Decentraland and Crypto Voxels? Do you see them at different ends of the spectrum and the kind of coming clash, or do you see them as, you know, maybe that's overdone and, you know, both are totally valid? How do you kind of see the future of the metaverse? Will it be decentralized? Will it be a hybrid, or will it be the centralized players that win?
I can start. I think that there's a place for both. And I personally think that it's not about whether it's decentralized or centralized. It's more about who provides a better and more fun experience for the player and the participant, and who's able to create a world that actually has meaning, where people can build identities and reputations, and, you know, whether it's earn money or buy items and have consequence in, like, you know, that extends potentially even into the IRL worlds. And I think whoever can make that kind of experience and meaning is going to attract a lot of people into their digital, you know, and virtual worlds, whether it's decentralized or centralized.
Yeah,
I mean, creatively, I don't know what you think, Alex, but creatively, a chief, a visionary, often does lead to the best results. I mean, I don't know what do you think in Faraway? Like, how much are you kind of controlling the aesthetic, controlling like how it works? I'm sure a lot.
I mean, it's going to be more initially, right? It's like as we build up the initial game mechanics and build up the game, you know, it's going to be more controlled by Faraway. But the eventual goal, right, is to, you know, make it more decentralized, get the community more involved, actually creating like meaningful parts of the game, and then, you know, right, taking over a huge chunk of the creation of the game. I think that's where all of these types of, you know, decentralized games eventually gravitate towards.
See, this is the problem with total decentralization, is then you get a completely disastrous image like I'm drawing now, as somebody who's not as artistic. It's supposed to be 2 eyes and a nose, and we add some eyes there for that guy. Poor guy.
So I think one thing I will say is there's shades of gray in the middle, right? So for example, if you take EVE Online, you might call that a very centralized experience. But if you ask Hilmar, the founder, he would say that a key tenet to EVE Online is that everything in the game is actually created by the players and also destroyed by the players. And so in that sense, you know, to Alex's point, a really key part of what makes the digital economy come to life is this ability to create and destroy, and of consequence, of reputation, and of community building. And so being able to create an experience in which the community comes together and you make friends digitally, or bring real friends into the game and be able to create together, like those are sort of the foundations, I think, of creating these digital societies.
When we look like, let's say 5 or 10 years in the future, and the metaverse has ceased to just be a series of video games, and there's a place where we wake up, earn a salary, pay taxes, you know, do we think that, one, that's going to happen in our lifetimes, and two, that we would be okay with like just a CEO of that world that could kind of change the physics of the world, change anything at a whim, because they're the CEO and creative director of the company, or kind of right now it doesn't matter as much to people, but when you multiply what's happening with Axie Infinity, will people want more control over their game worlds?
I think they'll eventually want more control over the game world, but I think if it ever gets to the point where there's a CEO or, you know, master of the universe, I think what will eventually happen is people might just leave that game world. And I think I think everybody who is operating a decentralized game, right, understands that if they don't do good by the community will leave. And for anything, right, the success of the game is predicated on you being able to retain your players, and the success of a metaverse, you know, you being able to retain the people that are, you know, that are inhabiting your metaverse.
Yeah, I mean, I think the creativity is super important. I don't know if you guys have been tracking loot and all of that, and the potential for a game world that's kind of built without any creative director. What have you guys thought about the potential metaverse that might come out of loot, or how did you react to seeing all that? Beautiful work, by the way, Amy. So
Squiggles.
This is lovely. No, I love it.
It's definitely inspired the imagination. I mean, it's why I think there's so much interest around loot and such a community around it. And I think it's going to be, it reminds me the most of modding, actually, but in a decentralized world, in which it truly is, you know, you have the core ingredients, and then you let the community build on top of that. And so I do think that the quality of the games, and whether they're going to attract like a mainstream or a large audience, or any sort of audience, is going to depend on this community now building on top of the loot items. And so, yeah, I'm personally pretty interested in seeing what's going to be created.
Are you guys familiar with the term exquisite corpse, sort of in art, where you kind of, one person does the beginning of the canvas and then one person adds to it, and on. It sort of reminded me a little bit of loot, but also reminded me of the situation that we're in right now. So I might ask Alex, as he's responding, to contribute to my work of art over here.
This one over here?
His personal touch, yeah. terms of decentralizing creativity and, you know, no particular creative director. And this is a collaborative project, I mean.
So eyebrows.
Anyway, go on with your thoughts on Loot. I interrupted you.
I think sort of what Amy was saying, I think the success of Loot will be dependent on how many like real creators. I don't want to call them professional creators, but I want to call them creators that actually take it really seriously. Because I think what we saw with Roblox, right, is that Roblox really took off when, you know, more professional types of experiences were, you know, deployed on the platform, right? It wasn't just obstacle courses. These were, you know, real games.
You mean like the little studios that have popped up in Roblox?
Yeah, little studios or even
big studios
that are just, you know, they're taking it more seriously. This is not like a weekend project for them or a day project. This is like they're dedicating significant amounts of time, maybe even like their entire job, right, to making experiences for Roblox. And I think
are you guys familiar with Dreams, the PS5 game?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's like such a creative treasure chest of things, but still there haven't been like studios pop up. And I kind of agree with you. We created an Oculus Story Studio. We created Facebook Quill, which was a painting application to make our third VR movie. And what we found was exactly that like just having individuals painting, that was cool and amazing. But you did kind of need a team that was taking it super seriously to create, I think, to create a kind of great and complex work of art. Otherwise you kind of just ceiling out pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think you need to solve that cold start problem, right? Because like you need a really solid experience to bring a lot of players into the door, into the ecosystem. And then the players will realize like, hey, if I make a game here too, or some experience, then there's going to be a lot of players that are now in this ecosystem that can immediately see my game. And that sort of gets the flywheel going. But we need to solve that cold start problem first. And that
did Loot solve the cold start problem for that community? Like, is that kind of, would you say that's
I think it's too early to say that they've solved it. There's obviously a lot.
The interesting thing is there's a financial incentive to build on top of it now, right? Because I think Loot holders probably want to continue seeing the value accrete, you know, like in terms of the token. And so when you have an additional layer of incentivization, and so if there are like some serious game devs in that community, it might only take a couple of devs to create something quite interesting. I mean, Stardew Valley was like one developer, right? But and so like if there's like some serious devs in there, then they could really build something pretty awesome. And the great thing, this is what's great thing about like NFTs is that you have a financial incentive to create.
Totally. I love that because you're right. Everybody wants their loot to go up or any kind of derivative things that they created to go up. And similar with Bored Apes, like kind of it's creating, it does seem as though there's something weirdly connected but different between people who are joining Roblox and want to create amazing art and stuff and get paid maybe for individual games, and people joining Bored Ape Yacht Club and wanting to kind of turn their ape into a 3D character and have it VTube as it, or put it in a game, or just express their creativity. And I feel like the Bored Ape folks almost have a clearer sense of how they would make money doing that, because they would be gradually increasing the price of the ape, whereas nobody who's a Roblox creator really could care less about Roblox's share price, and like they don't benefit anyway from that. So there's something, I wonder psychologically if we'll get more out of people if they have a clearer financial incentive, or like if everyone is somewhat incentivized the same way.
I guess, yeah, I mean, for Loot or for Bored Ape Yacht Club, right? I think these are like owners of the community that are incentivized to invest more into the community, and by them investing more in the community, right? It has it's directly proportional to like the success of like the Bored Ape Yacht Club community. Whereas for a Roblox creator, like their individual impact might not be as like directly proportional to the price of the Roblox stock, right?
It's a powerful incentive.
What do we think about play to earn? I mean, how much is play to earn based on, income inequality between rich countries and poor countries? Like, is that like a necessary part of the of the structure to be economically viable, or is this actually something that could I guess would actually have worked if it was only based in one country? Or do you need that disparity for it to work?
I do think play to earn is an income arbitrage, because the term, I mean, there's different ways to describe it, right? I actually think of it as two definitions of play to earn. The first is, are you somebody who's basically playing for a wage? And that is probably the classic play to earn. And then there's are you playing for fun? And then if you can earn some money on the NFT items, that's just like an added part of the game. And so, I mean, if we first stop on the first concept of it, people who are just earning, right? I think interestingly, Axie Infinity released some metrics around their D30 and D90 retention, and it looks like it's pretty much this. Yeah, it looks like it's pretty much the same at around 40%. And I saw that, and my first reaction was, wow, I've literally never seen that in the game before. And then it kind of, I feel like the reason is because it really does speak to the earning use case of that game. I mean, people are playing Axie Infinity as a job, right? And so what's your retention in a job? It's probably pretty high. And as long as
what is my day 30 retention on employees? It's actually pretty good. I'm proud of that.
Oh, that's different from like a day 90 employee. Oh, somebody's like erasing my art right now. But
day 90, my day 90 isn't as good. People have already completely like, we hate it here, etc., etc.
Yeah, and so it speaks to the fact that a lot of these players are earning a wage, and so then it's like, you know, they earn far more than they do playing Axie Infinity than you know, flipping burgers or driving Grab or something like that. And so it's very compelling to play Axie Infinity. And I think as long as that game continues to, you know, move the dials in their economy to allow people to do that, then there'll continue to be a lot of people coming in, play to earn. I think that what we will see in the next sort of number of blockchain games released is perhaps like people playing with this ratio of
guys, Amy, can you see what this guy's doing? This guy's literally Xing out my entire painting.
Oh yeah.
I thought he was.
Sorry to interrupt you, but this is just like, I can't believe what just happened.
Oh yeah, he erased mine right before you.
This is like being in a centralized metaverse, and at some point Tim Sweeney, you know, comes and he changes the thing, and then you're like, I don't know if you remember the Vitalik thing about the spell that he'd spent so long on, and somebody comes and changes the like power of the spell, and he never wanted to play centralized games again. I just feel horrified. I put so much creative effort into this.
I know. I was pretty sad when he erased mine too.
I feel. Yeah, this guy's a monster. Or is he a bot? I mean, perhaps he's a bot, or he's like a sociopath, just serial killer of these paintings. Well, I guess, does it, if we're saying that the earn portion is potentially the key driver of retention, and the earn portion only really works in very poor countries, then does it kind of, as you were saying, the arbitrage thing, is that kind of?
I think it's an arbitrage thing. Yeah, it's an arbitrage thing, but I think the broader point is that I think in an ideal game, if you want a game to really, you know, be pretty balanced, like globally, then you know, there's going to be some people that are earning money on it, but there's going to be a lot more people who are playing it and also earning some money on the items, but it's not necessarily a job. I think, I think in the future we will see big games, big blockchain games in which they have more balanced players.
And a lot of people playing it just for the entertainment's sake. And because
I mean, my girlfriend plays it for the entertainment. I mean, definitely, she's like, she keeps sending texts of Axies that she thinks that we should buy. And seems to enjoy
when I play it, it's definitely
the actual game of it.
When I play, it's definitely for entertainment value. But this is to say, like, I think most of the Western players playing it are playing for the entertainment value.
No, I agree. Well, I guess as we sort of wrap up, I'll take a kind of pre-written question from the audience. So, you know, one of them is, where do you see blockchain gaming in 5 years? I guess from each of you.
Alex?
Yes, where do I see blockchain gaming? I think
in 5 years, yeah.
5 years. I guess the next step, I'll answer it in a few ways. I think in the next 1 to 2 years, we're going to see a lot more social, like blockchain games. I think the blockchain games today are more like solitary like experiences where they're more single player, right? It's like you find by yourself, you collect by yourself, that type of stuff. I think we're gonna, just like we saw in free to play, right, in like 2013, 2015, right? The games became a lot more about, you know, forming clans or forming communities, and then participating in these clans in order to achieve a goal greater than what you could do by yourself, right? So I think for the next 1 to 2 years, in the next 5 years, right, we're definitely going to start seeing a lot more decentralized governance of these games. Like right now, like today, right, a lot of these games are still very much centralized in the way that, you know, they're developed, and I think we are going to see a lot more like player-centric development where the community is contributing to both like the development and like feature ideation and like live operation of these games. So I think that is definitely the next step, and I think if we're going to extend this out into, you know, a creative metaverse, we have to let, you know, the players actually contribute to how these games evolve over time.
And then the last question is, you know, can the big games of today make the transition to decentralization, and do they need to?
Maybe I can take this one. So I think for a lot of the free-to-play gaming studios, like this is a complete paradigm shift in how you would think about designing and operating a game, because on the free-to-play side, right, it's very, very centralized. You have a game designer or a live ops manager that basically says to the players without their input, this is how the game is going to evolve. This is how we're going to inflate or deflate the economy. These are the events that are going to run in these, you know, in these specific days. You know, these are the currencies that we're going to introduce over time. It's like the players don't really have any choice in the matter, and the game designer has, you know, all of the ability to, you know, pull all the levers that they have at their disposal in order to, you know, keep the players monetizing and retaining. But I think, right, it's like a blockchain game or anything that's more decentralized. Like you don't have the levers. So like the concept of like centralized game design or like heavy live ops, like basically live operation of your games, it doesn't exist. So I think it's
an interesting mindset shift
for any sort of big free-to-play game developer. And I think the idea that a free-to-play game with a deep and complex free-to-play economy can make the easy shift to a more decentralized economy, I think it's just not realistic.
I'm thinking of Genshin Impact and how kind of crazy that would be and how much that would change things for my girlfriend.
It would change.
I was obsessed with Genshin. Do you want to take us out with a final thought on that, Amy, or on a
Yeah, sure. I totally agree with everything Alex said, and then I would just add that I think in maybe 5+ year time, it's less about the distinction between blockchain gaming and gaming. It's just gaming, right? And so many games will have incorporated blockchain in it. I also think that while every major publisher, centralized publisher, is thinking about blockchain because many are publicly traded, and they're going to be slower to adopt and also more subject to regulatory compliance. And so therefore I do think that kind of like the the DeFi sort of native games and smaller indie studios will probably have a leg up in terms of just being able to move faster. Yeah,
that regulatory risk is real.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is like, it feels like free to play back in 2009, 2010, where
people think of that as a big risk.
Yeah, you had a lot of premium game studios that said, never going to give a game away for free. And then you had a bunch of startups that said, we're going to give this away for free, and then we're going to figure out how to make money later. I think that was
Faraway and folks like you will be proved right as they were. All right, let's go and give homage to the god Bob Ross, and that'll be kind of, you know, where we end it in a moment of silent prayer before the centralized creative genius of Bob Ross. There he is. Wish there was sort of some kind of hail functional. Yeah, I see. He does unfortunately, go from dimension to dimension. That is one of his key things. So
very fitting.
Yeah, 13. Yeah, 13. You've gotten pretty close. And I'm glad that we now have paints as we're doing it. All right. Well, Amy and Alex, thank you so much for. Oh my God, Amy, very bold. Amy and Alex, thank you so much for joining us. And really fascinating discussion on blockchain and gaming.
Thanks so much for having us. Really enjoyed it.